You want to know how fast your world can flip upside down? Picture this. I'm sitting in my car, halfway through a bite of a cold egg sandwich, when a woman in a fuchsia pink power suit storms up to my window, taps those manicured claws on the glass, and hisses, "Call the FBI for all I care. You're joining this HOA whether you like it or not." I swear, you could see her breath fog the air. Maybe it was the rage. Maybe it was the $50 perfume. And as if on cue, police sirens start howling somewhere down the block, getting closer, promising this mess is about to explode. The salty breeze from the marina mixed with the stench of yacht fuel, her perfume, and the idle diesel exhaust of the moving truck behind me. Honestly, if stress had a smell, that would be it. Seagulls swooped overhead, screaming, like they were laying bets on who'd win the neighborhood showdown. 3 weeks ago, I was Sterling Knox Garrison. Today, I'm just some guy trying to move into his granddad's waterfront house without getting drafted into a dictatorship run by a woman who, I'd soon learn, believed she owned half the coast. Now, the sun was dropping low, turning the street into a dramatic film set. Long shadows, golden glow, every neighbor peeking out like extras who'd paid for front row tickets. What this woman, Cordelia Ashworth Blakewood, as I'd find out, didn't realize was the badge hidden in my glove box, a badge that'd end her reign in, about 47 minutes. She had no clue the game she was playing or the rules she'd broken. The stakes? Just a cool $847,000 house. $50,000 in back HOA dues she claimed were owed. And, get this, a community queen pin who'd apparently never met a rule she couldn't twist. She slammed a clipboard against my window, sun glinting off her. Enough. I stepped out, feeling the hush sweep over the marina, like even the boat engines paused for drama. The moving guy, Dale, who'd seen every kind of neighbor from Bridezilla to biker gangs, just looked at me with those "here we go again" eyes. I introduced myself, hand out. Cordelia ignored it, straightened her blazer, and shot back. HOA president for 11 years. Your new neighbor, like it or not. 11 years. Long enough to build a kingdom. Long enough to break a few too many rules. Neighbors started gathering, 12, then 15, then who knows how many more, all pretending to fetch mail, all sipping coffee, but you could see the excitement in their faces. I kept things polite. "Mrs. Blakewood, I haven't seen any documentation yet." She thrust the clipboard at me again, barking, "You don't need to. Judge Harrington Blackthorne will handle it if you refuse." That name, Blackthorne, put a chill in the air. I'd heard it before, in whispered warnings at courthouse corners. Cordelia launched into a speech about $50,000 in dues, how the house was vacant but never excused from HOA fees. She didn't need to know my grandfather spent his final years in a nursing home, forgetting everything, including this house. That was family business. What mattered now was the way she kept glancing at the fancy security cameras. Too many, too expensive, aimed too perfectly. I clocked 17, military grade. Somebody had been watching. "Ma'am," I said, letting a little steel edge into my voice. "I'd be very careful about making legal claims you can't support." For the first time, she hesitated. Maybe it was my gray suit, maybe it was my calm, or maybe she realized she wasn't the only shark in the water. I nodded to Dale, who asked if he should unload or bail. Cordelia snapped, "You're leaving. Property's under HOA seizure." But then, sirens again, this time for us. 2 officers rolled up, Deputy Quentin Morrison, all business, and Sergeant Chadwick Walsh, who greeted Cordelia like a golfing buddy. "Arrest him for trespassing," she barked, pointing at me like I was public enemy number 1. Deputy Morrison looked skeptical. "Ma'am, this seems like a civil matter. Has anyone actually broken the law?" Cordelia doubled down. "Trespassing, community oversight, yada yada." I calmly produced my deed, county stamped, legitimate. Ironclad. "Officers, I think there's some confusion about jurisdiction. I also have security clearance that may complicate oversight here." The words security clearance hung heavy in the air. Cordelia's eyes darted, her fingers drumming a nervous Morse code on that diamond bracelet. Deputy Morrison's posture changed. "What kind of clearance?" he asked. "Federal property designation." I replied, "I'll need to make some calls." And wouldn't you know, just then a helicopter thundered overhead, rattling the windows, spooking the seagulls again. When it passed, Cordelia looked, genuinely rattled. Federal property? That's ridiculous, she sneered, but I could see gears grinding. I called my legal team, loudly enough for everyone to hear, tossing out terms like security, protocols, and jurisdictional review. When I hung up, Cordelia was whispering urgently to Sergeant Walsh. She wanted my background checked ASAP. If you're still with me, now's a good time to hit like, drop a comment. Where are you watching from? Ever had an HOA go nuclear on you? Trust me, you haven't seen anything yet. While they were running my info, I slipped inside my new old house. The key worked, small miracle. The place smelled like dust and the past, but in the study I found something that changed everything. My grandfather's Coast Guard papers, service records, maps, and most important, documents showing the property was a federal observation post from 1943 to 1971, never rescinded, never subject to HOA control. This wasn't just a house. It was a chunk of history. I snapped some photos and marched outside, holding up the documents. Mrs. Blakewood, you might find this interesting. She grabbed the paper and went from confusion to panic in 5 seconds flat. Impossible, she sputtered. We've been collecting fees from this property for 12 years. I smiled. That's odd, because my grandfather never paid HOA dues in 43 years here. In fact, he had a whole file on your predecessor arguing the HOA had zero authority over federal property. Deputy Morrison stepped closer. Are you saying this property has federal protection? I'm saying it was never legally part of the HOA. Coast Guard designation came first. HOA came decades later. Federal law trumps HOA rules. Cordelia paled. This has to be some kind of technicality. But her voice was shot, the crowd now openly recording, the tension thick enough to cut. Then, another twist, those security cameras? Not just for show. They covered every angle. Overlapping fields, military grid references, night vision. I pointed them out. Interesting neighborhood watch, huh? Cordelia tried to explain, break-ins, of course, but I knew pro-surveillance when I saw it. Deputy Morrison's cop radar was up. Overlapping fields of what, he asked. Observation, I replied. I work security consulting. Only a partial lie. Sergeant Walsh's radio crackled. Dispatch was calling about a federal audit inquiry into HOA finances, irregular property transfers. Cordelia's face went ghost white. Seib's Development LLC, ring a bell? She nearly fainted. She muttered about cleaning up irregularities before the audit arrived, right in front of 2 cops and a growing crowd. She'd just confessed to a whole lot more than aggressive. Fee collection. Here's where it snowballed. I pressed. Seib's Development LLC's been buying up property through forced sales, right? Her terror said it all. She stammered. It's all legal. Judge Blackthorne signed off on everything. But I'd already seen the paperwork. 7 forced sales, for $0.2 million, all waterfront, all through that same shell company, all signed by the same judge. This wasn't about weeds in the yard. This was criminal. By now, the neighbors were buzzing. Then, a black SUV pulled up down the street. Dark windows, slow roll, clearly not your average HOA member. Cordelia noticed. So did I. Maybe now's a good time to be honest, Mrs. Blakewood. She stared at me, weighing her next move. You're interfering with legitimate business, she tried. But she was losing ground, fast. The police asked for documentation on my federal claim. I reached for my wallet, ready to end it. But before I could, Cordelia's phone rang. She stepped away just far enough that I could still catch her frantic words. Yes, sir, he knows about the audit. He mentioned Judge Blackthorne. I'll handle it. The panic was real. And then the real show began. The SUV's doors opened. 3 figures in suits. All business. Feds for sure. The lead guy flashed his badge, FBI. We're looking for Mrs. Cordelia Ashworth Blakewood in connection with an ongoing investigation. The crowd was dead silent. Cordelia's earlier bravado? Gone. The agent continued. We have evidence of forced property acquisitions, shell companies, and coordinated legal proceedings. We need to speak with you about Seib's Development LLC. Here's the plot twist nobody saw coming. Not even me. Cordelia, trembling, reached into her purse. But instead of another clipboard, she pulled out a badge. Agent Cordelia Ashworth, Governor's Financial Crimes Division. 3 years deep cover. The crowd gasped. The FBI was floored. I almost laughed out loud. Turns out, the queen of the HOA was a state agent, investigating the same network I was targeting. That was the moment my own phone rang. Urgent call from the governor's office. Agent Garrison, stand down. Mrs. Blakewood is ours. She's been building the case for 3 years. I nearly dropped my badge. 2 parallel ops, hers and mine, crashing together at this exact moment. We compared notes right. There in front of everyone, realizing we'd both been investigating the same ring. Judge Blackthorne was the inside man. Siebes the shell, Assistant Director Crawford at the FBI, was leaking info. And the whole thing traced up to a U.S. senator laundering campaign money through forced HOA seizures. 12 states, $8.7 million, nearly 50 families robbed. All disguised as HOA business. It ended that night at the community clubhouse. Cordelia wired up, me playing angry new homeowner, and the FBI waiting outside with a tactical team. Judge Blackthorne strutted in, smug as ever. But when Cordelia played back their meeting on tape, discussing audits, leaks, and criminal property transfers, the room exploded. I flashed my badge, called in the feds, and watched as Blackthorne and his cronies were cuffed right there under the gold-plated chandelier. Nobody left, not even the state senator. 3 months later, I sat in my grandfather's living room, sunrise painting the marina, this time with no threats, no cameras, just peace. Cordelia, now promoted and running a statewide task force, called me with news. New laws, full restitution for every family. Property values soaring, and federal oversight making sure this never happens again. But corruption, like mold, always tries to come back. Within weeks, new reports surfaced, HOAs in other states. Same playbook, different names. Cordelia and I, now partners, went after them. Every case, we found the same arrogance, the same small kingdoms built on intimidation and greed. But now, justice came faster. Our team, nicknamed the Kingdom Busters, became legend in law enforcement circles. Sometimes I get letters from folks who got their homes back, like Mrs. Whitmore, 30 years. In her house, forced out, now restored. Agent Garrison, I thought justice was just for the movies. Thanks for proving the good guys really do win. That letter sits on my desk. Means more than any plaque or ribbon. You want to know the craziest part? The neighborhood, the one that almost got destroyed, is now a model for how to do it right. Real security, real democracy, community centers, helping families heal. Cordelia leads workshops, teaching others to spot the warning signs. I still drive the same old sedan, badge in the glove box, waiting for the next call. Because somewhere, tonight, some would-be kingpin thinks the rules don't apply to them. They'll learn the hard way. Rules are rules, darling. And the most important one? Justice always finds a way. So, what do you think? Is justice about punishment or about setting things right? Have you ever faced down a petty tyrant, HOA or otherwise? Drop your stories and opinions in the comments below. And if you want to see more of these wild showdowns, hit like, subscribe, and share this story, because trust me, there's always another kingdom to bust, and the next one might be yours.